welcome back to another episode of Dogfight Podcast. I'm your host, Uriah.
And I'm your co-host, Pavel.
We are recording this actually on a Sunday, surprisingly.
Recording on time for once. Look at that.
Yeah, it's crazy, even though, it's been a long week for me.
Well, early card, early podcast. You know what they say. Or
I
nobody says that.
Yeah,
I say it. I'm the someone.
it's me. I'm the someone. I like how the card was actually early. Yeah, so the card over the weekend was, I guess, technically a fight night. Paris. I know
Fight
it's like a
night,
whole.
Sirogan versus Taito Avasa in Paris, France. Started at 12 noon Eastern. And oh boy, I mean, it didn't feel like a fight night with the crowd they had, which we'll talk about. It really did have a big fight feel for a lot of these fights.
I've been noticing that with a lot of the European cards. I think that's because it's such a growing market over there that everyone just comes out in droves, and the
That and I
support
think
is amazing.
Yeah, that and I think the amount of events that they have there is so few these days that when it does indeed come back around, the buildings are packed. Everyone wants to be there. I mean, this is the first ever UFC event in France. Like that's a huge landmark for UFC.
Did
To
they
break
release
that mark.
did they release numbers for how many people were actually there yet?
Oh, they did. Yeah, it was. I heard they made over 3 million euro from the gate alone.
Oh, jeez.
Something like that. Really big numbers. So I'll pull up those numbers and I'll say them when I find them.
But yeah, I'm actually surprised we're recording this today. It's been, I don't know, work has been crazy. I wasn't even supposed to I don't usually work Sundays, but then I got a call at 7:30 this morning. It's like, hey Yuri, we need you to come in. Like, okay.
Yep, it'd be like that
I'm so
sometimes.
glad Sundays are short days for me, though. Thank God.
Yep. Okay, here I found the attendance was 15,405,
Ooh.
and that was a sellout, and it was 3.4 million euro, so $3.2 million. Incredible, great, like just from the gate. That's ridiculous.
The
So
energy. You were saying that people were already filling in towards the beginning of the early prelims.
no, the fights hadn't even started yet. By the time the broadcast started, the building was already 3/4 full.
That's
So
insane. On normal fight nights, even San Diego, people the crowd wasn't even that big until maybe the last two of the prelim cards.
yeah,
I want to say, but to get 3/4 at that early is insane. That means big promise for the European market.
for sure. I mean, and it's a historic event. I mean, it was the first. France only legalized MMA about 2016, so it's like one of the first major mixed martial arts shows to take place in the country. I will say Bellator did pip UFC to that. They had an event in Paris sometime 2020, I think, or maybe 2021. But yeah, this was really big, and the crowd really justified, being them being there because they were. It's one of the best crowds I've ever seen. I'll talk about that briefly once we get a little further. I'll hot shot to this at the beginning actually. The first time a French fighter walked out, which was Benoit Saint-Denis for his fight against Gabriel Miranda, which was on the prelims. It's one of the loudest, most raucous, crowds I've ever heard for an entrance. And this is for the first French fighter to fight in the UFC on French soil. It was really,
Yeah, that's
really a cool
huge.
moment. Yeah, and the whole fight really just had incredible energy because Saint-Denis won by TKO right at the start of the second round, and the place erupted. It was deafening in there, and it was really incredible. And that was a sign of things to come for a lot of the French fighters on the card. Which I not to spoil anything too much, but France went 5-0 out of all the fighters on the card. Every French fighter won. However, the manner of some of those was a little unexpected. So to jump back up the card, we'll start with the main event because that was the main That was the main draw. Cyril Gane versus Tai Tuivasa for presumably not really next in line, so to speak, but to put their name in the conversation for next in line for heavyweight champ, or for a heavyweight title
What did
shot.
you think? What did you think of Ty's performance?
Well, I'll say that remember my prediction, which was Cyril Gane by boring 5-round decision, 50-45.
Complete
Uh,
opposite.
uh, Look, I saw it said that it was the expected winner, but in the most unexpected way imaginable. And yeah, this fight delivered way
It
better than I
was
thought it would.
it was awesome. Like I expected Ty to to stand and bang, and he did to a certain extent. I mean, I think Ty I think he's allergic to boring fights.
You cannot have a boring fight with Tai Tuivasa. He is kill or be killed, and he's becoming one of my favorite heavyweights to watch because it's always a spectacle when he fights, win or lose. And like, I think round two is the best. Was the best thing to describe this fight, which is that prior to that point, Gane had been kind of controlling the distance, as we all expected him to. Then I looked away for half a second. Suddenly, Gane is on the ground because Tai Tuivasa hit him with this huge punch through his guard, and it still knocked him over.
I've
And
never
actually,
seen. I don't think I've ever seen Gon get taken down like that. I could be wrong, but just from Ty to Avasa of all people, because again, I would have thought it was just gonna go like you said, just a decision, kind of like poking and jabbing here and there. But I wasn't.
you actually said TKO in round three, which you were almost right.
I was
Uh,
close.
yeah, but it was, and Gon said in the interview afterward that Ty hit him so hard that he was actually knocked out for a second.
Jesus.
Um, and like after going through the guard, hitting his hands on the way in, it was still hard enough to knock him out, which is unbelievable. Then, not 30 seconds later, Gon was already back on his feet, landing some of the most stomach churning body kicks I've ever seen
But
on
Ty was
Ty.
just eating those though. I mean, eventually they all added up, but he was like teep kicking him and front kicking him repeatedly, and Ty just kept kind of advancing his guard, which is crazy.
Yes. I mean, look, this is a man who walked through Derek Lewis full power strikes. So he's basically bulletproof in that case. But like, even so, like, I think that second round really encompassed this fight, which was that it was wild and way more back and forth than anybody would have given it credit for in the beginning. I think odds odds for Gane swelled to some ridiculous number.
It
We'll
was
say
like
like
minus 800.
-800, I think, something like that. Which goes to before all that. So it was a really, really crazy fight. And so we eventually got to the third round. And by that point, Ty was gassing a little bit, but I think it was just an accumulation of damage because Gon had landed so many body
Getting
kicks.
gut yeah, getting teep kicked to eternity for the last like 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Essentially, you're getting stabbed in the gut
yeah,
with
yeah.
like
A
toes.
teep kick, if we haven't mentioned, it's a Muay Thai kick where it's a front kick where you point straight forward with your foot and try and basically kick through them, through their gut.
You end up
It's
digging into
awful.
them.
Yeah,
It's disgusting if you land it right. It's stomach churning.
it's like getting
Oh,
speared in the gut with the other person's foot. It sucks. So yeah, he was landing those on Ty, and then also some regular roundhouse kind of kicks as well. But Ty kept, he kept going, but
kept
eventually
coming,
his
like, it
guard,
was insane.
yeah, yeah, eventually his guard, his guard came down. Cyril hammered him with I think it was either a left or a right, it was a right straight, um, which sent blood flying like in the Usman Masvidal KO with the sweat that flew off that.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
that, which was metal as fuck. And that event that finally wobbled him. It took 5 more punches after that clean right straight to bring Ty down. His
To kinda
chin is
to kinda
indestructible.
backtrack to kinda backtrack, yeah, speaking on his chin, I was about to say, I wanna say it was the 2nd round or early in the 3rd. Cyril blast Ty with this massive head kick, And Ty starts wobbling, and I was like, "Oh shit!" He's got him on skates. This is it. This is
Yep.
how it ends.
That was
And
a
then,
late second round. Yeah.
and then Ty just immediately just. I think he's playing possum. He had to have been playing possum because he immediately snaps back and just tries. He doesn't land it, but he throws just this looping overhand, like to play possum like that, and to kind of bait him in for a heavyweight striker like that is insane. Like that is playing with some fire right there.
Yeah, no, and that looping punch with fight-ending intentions.
Yeah,
So,
he,
like,
he wanted it to end right there, but like,
it was
oh, I thought it was done, like right there, and then he like, oh, I'm back, and then throws
yeah,
the punch. I'm like, wait, what? What the
yeah, no,
hell?
exactly. So it was a war, and Gon was really tested. We know his chin, we know his recovery now, which are two of the pieces of the puzzle that we didn't have on him
It was a
yet.
weird test though. Like out of all the fighters on the roster, I I'm not gonna say this was his biggest test because obviously Ngannou was his biggest test. That there's no doubt. But Ty had him in some sketchy situations a lot.
It's crazy that out of all the absolute killers that he's fought, including and not limited to Francis Ngannou and Derek Lewis, Alexander Volkov, Jairzinho Rosenstrike, Tai Tuivasa was the first to get to him.
It
Out of
was the
all of those
first
folks,
the first time like I didn't I knew the fight was gonna go Cyril's way, but it looked like he had him in danger
yeah,
multiple occasions. More danger than I think Francis Ngannou had, because Francis Ngannou kind of just wrestle fucked him for the last like 10-15 minutes of the fight.
yeah. I think this is the first time we've seen Cyril Gane in peril like that,
But I
like
think that
at
also
serious
adds
risk of
that also
losing
speaks
by
to
10.
how active Ty is on the feet.
Yeah,
He's
like
willing to get in that firefight. A lot of fighters will like play it safe, especially when you're a heavyweight, because you know that one stray punch and you're done. But Ty is
mhm,
just he's willing just to get into some really sketchy situations at the detriment of himself, and he knows that.
yeah. It's because he knows his chin is almost unbreakable.
Dude,
Like
scientists need to study that man's chin, 'cause I think they just found like the freaking cure for like everything.
no, no, it's because he was Mark Hunt's protege, and Mark Hunt had the most legendary unbreakable chin of all time.
It's that Samoan blood. I'm
Yeah,
telling you.
exactly. Mark Hunt, classic heavyweight stand and bang knockout guy, one
There's
of
a
the hardest
reason
hitters.
why
There's been.
Samoans have always been at the forefront of like warrior culture, no matter if it's combat sports or football, because they don't get hurt that often.
Don't forget pro wrestling;
Oh, and
they're
pro
everywhere.
wrestling, yeah.
Can't forget about The Rock, and all of his legion of cousins. So yeah, really, really impressive fight. It gives me a lot more faith in Ty, and it really also,
It was a
um,
fun test. It was a
yeah,
not fun. It was a good test for Ty,
yeah,
in my
and
opinion.
it shows to me that he's not just overranked and that he can actually hang with the top of the division. Because
Yeah,
if you can
because
put Cyril Gane of all people in peril, that shows you're skilled enough to be there. Because Cyril Gane
for
is probably the most skilled heavyweight on the planet right now.
for a while, I love Ty. Don't get me wrong, I love Ty, but for a while, I kept hearing him and I kept watching his highlights. They always play the same highlights over and over again, and it got to the point where I'm like, all right, this dude's good. Who's he fought? And then I looked at his record. It's like, all right, knocked out Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis had him some deep waters though. Had him some really sketchy situations. Who else did he fight? Sakai. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not a
Sakai
not a
before he completely, imploded.
not a
But yeah,
completely bad fight, but it's not competitive enough for me to think that much.
yeah.
Then
I
who else
mean,
did he
Greg
have before?
Greg Hardy rocked him.
And then Greg Hardy, yeah, I was like, that's in my opinion, that's not really a fight. So this whole like, there's this whole notion in my brain going in. Well, whenever I would think about Ty, it's just like he's a little bit overhyped. And I think the reason why is that he's a fun guy. He's super likable. But how is he in situations like this? And then seeing him in going toe to toe with Cyril, I'm like, okay, he's not overhyped. The hype is actually there. I
Yeah.
get it. I totally
Mhm.
understand now. But
Yeah, no, and credit to him. I think he really has improved. He's talked a lot about how, he's taken a lot of the distractions out of his training. Every time he goes into camp, he goes to Dubai, all the way from Australia, and trains there just to get away from distractions. Um, And I think he's gotten more serious about his game ever since he went on that 3-fight losing streak. And he's rattled off
He looked good.
quite
He looked
quite a few
focused
good
and
performances
good.
in a row.
Like I'm glad that he's been training out there and he's getting. I don't know if I said this in the last episode, but I was always wondering like what his mentality was, what his mindset is. Like, oh, he's always the guy who wants to stand and bang. I'm like, that's only gonna get you so far though.
Right,
But he
right,
he
right.
looked like laser focused. He looked cool and collected. I think more so than usual, which I really like
Yeah,
about that. It shows that his mind and his headspace is in the right area,
definitely.
which
Yeah,
is it's gonna get him super far if he keeps going at this pace and with that mentality, it's gonna take him really far. I
yeah.
don't know if it's championship material though.
I think he's championship challenger material, which is
He's
better than
definitely
I would a
contender
chance I would
status.
have given him. I wouldn't have called him a contender or a title shot contender really before this fight. I would have said, okay, he's going to fall back down the rankings and he's going to get passed by folks like Curtis Blades, by Tom Aspinall, although he's hurt. Get well soon, Tom. But yeah, I think now since he lost, he'll probably fight down. I'm looking at the rankings right now. I think a really good fight would be him versus Pavlovich, Sergey Pavlovich.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Although Pavlovich might be ready to fight sooner than Ty, so maybe.
Yeah,
But if he wants to wait longer, he can fight. He can fight Tom Aspinall.
that
Uh,
would be an interesting fight.
yeah, I think that he has more of a chance to win that fight than I previously would have given him credit for.
If I were to backseat corner, I just from my expert analysis, I would say that Ty needs to work on his cardio a bit, and that's not a dig at the big boys. That's just the name of the game for fighting is that you need to work on your cardio.
Mhm, mhm.
He, I it definitely says in the last episode, I've never seen Ty go longer than like 3 or 4 rounds, 3 rounds
Yep,
really.
you
Um,
did, and you were right.
and I think that it's especially when you're a heavyweight like this and you throw with that much power, is that you really need to work on that gas tank because it's not sustainable. Like that style of fighting isn't sustainable in the long run if you want to become a champion.
Yeah, no, he's living on his chin,
Yeah,
and that
you
is
can't be that. You can't base your entire game on getting punched in the face and living through it.
yeah.
Like there's levels to this.
For sure, but I mean, I think he is approach. He's getting up there. He's improving. However, I also do want to shift focus to Cyril Gahn as well because this showed that he's mortal, basically.
Yeah, it
Um,
humanized them.
yeah, and I really, like I said, I've been going around basically saying he's the most skilled heavyweight on the planet. Um, but it does make me wonder. He already lost to Ngannou. He on a fight tactics sort of level. Um, and it makes me wonder how he would fare against Stipe Miocic. Which I think if they don't, like I said, I'm a firm believer John Jones will never fight at heavyweight. So in that case, I think that it would be a good fight for Cyril to fight Stipe for either an interim belt or probably an interim belt because Francis is going to be hurt for a while and he's out of shape right now. Um, and also he's probably going to walk. So like I think they set up an interim fight, and I think that Gon Miocic is the fight that happens because I do not think Jones will fight at heavyweight. And I think like Stipe is the other contender for probably most technically skilled heavyweight
He
on the
is.
planet, right?
He to go against Gon though, he would have to be more technical than he already is, which is saying
Right.
a lot for a heavyweight.
True.
Before I even knew who really Cyril Gahn was, really before who I knew really who Cyril Gahn or Tom Aspinall was or were, I always looked at Stipe Miocic as the most technical heavyweight because like when you think of a heavyweight, you think either hardcore wrestling game, as in like Daniel
Like
Cormier
Blades.
or Blades, yeah,
Yeah.
or you think just swing and bang.
Like Derek
But
Lewis.
yeah, Derek Lewis. But Stipe found that great middle of really good wrestling and really good striking. Like he sets up traps, he cuts angles. He knows the game. But to go against someone like Cyril Gahn, he would have to work on that, I think, more than usual, which is going to be interesting.
But he's capable of doing that. He's
Oh,
a
he's
very
definitely
skilled player. He was
capable.
a long time heavyweight champion for a reason. So that's a fight I'd like to see. Um,
I think that's probably the most reasonable fight.
and it also
If
irks me that they're talking about John Jones skipping the line.
that's
So
we'll have to see how that
I don't think he
plays
deserves that.
out.
I think he needs to fight at least once at heavyweight before he can stake his claim to an interim or a
But who
an
does he
interim shot.
fight
Or
though? Like Blades?
I'd want to see him fight Blades.
That would that'd be a fun fight actually. Now that I think about it.
I think it's good because it's high enough off the. I think of the last time we had somebody high profile trying to break into the rankings in a new division, which was Yuri Prohaska. Well, maybe not the last time, but a time. Yuri Prohaska trying to break into the UFC light heavyweight division. He debuted against number 7 Volkan Ozdemir, and I think John Jones is probably better than Yuri. So I think he probably takes a few steps up. So we look at, number 7
Yeah.
is Derek Lewis, number 6 is Tom Aspinall, who's hurt, number 5 is Sergey Pavlovich, who's a prospect, and then we get to 4, who's Curtis Blades. I think that feels like a reasonable fight if
Curtis
we're
would
going
have
based
to
on his pedigree.
Curtis would have to learn how to negotiate out of that clinch though.
For sure. But I think
You do
that's like
not
a
want to get clinched by John Jones.
nastiest clinch worker in the game.
It's
Yeah.
disgusting.
Yeah. And so like I think that's a fair entry for John Jones. I think they will shove him in with Stipe. I don't think
They
that's
have
fair.
to because it's a money thing at that point.
Yeah, but that pisses me off because
Yeah.
it's like TJ getting the title shot, TJ Dillashaw getting the title shot against Aljamain Sterling. One fight, but at least he had one fight before that. He beat Corey Sandhagen in a fight that I thought Sandhagen won.
I
You know,
think Sandhagen won to this day, but
yeah.
that's
But at least he came and he fought at the division. Said, "Okay, I'm back. I can fight." You know, I don't think it's right that Jones has a chance to just walk into it. Anyway, um, I'm gonna put my hat behind Gan Miocic, and yeah, and Ngannou. We're forgetting about Ngannou, he did beat Gun, and not only can he hit like a truck, like a Ford Escort specifically, um, like he showed he has some wrestling chops and some jiu-jitsu chops. Like I was watching the call of that fight the other day, and the call of Daniel Cormier saying, "Oh my God, Francis is doing jiu-jitsu." It's just so funny to me.
he
But it's also
negotiated
terrible.
he negotiated his way out of that heel hook,
Yeah.
which is insane. Like that's crazy.
So yeah. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Heavyweight is so up in the air right now,
It's
but this was a fun fight.
it's not a complete mess, but it is a mess.
It's not a mess. It's just that all the players are absent right now.
Yeah.
It's hard to really say what's going to land where. Anyway, um, so that was that fight, and so that's a fight where my prediction was very wrong. So now let's transition to a fight where your prediction was very
Oh
wrong, Yuri. I think you've
god.
got some. I
I
think you've got some things to say.
I man, I have never wanted to eat my own words so much.
Yep.
The Robert Whittaker Vittori fight, last episode, I was throwing so much doubt on Robert Whittaker. I was burying him. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I was pretty much discrediting Robert Whittaker and burying his skills. But him in this fight, man, oh my god. I have never seen such a more immaculate striking clinic than this fight.
It's like he was personally trying to shut you up.
Oh no, exactly. I was actually thinking that at work today. I'm like, because I was watching the highlights when I was on my break, and I was watching like, it's almost as if he heard me. It was just like, "Hey, yo, Yuri, fuck you," and he just starts just throwing. But he negotiate. My main concern was that Vittori was just going to bull rush his way, was just going to manhandle him, was just going to throw absolute bombs. And I think they were anticipating that. And so Robert Whittaker, he negotiated that distance and navigated the distance game super well. He was in and out, in and out, in and out, knew when to strike, knew the angles, everything.
Yeah, and Vittori
Well,
couldn't even get close to him.
Vittori had no answer to any of his strength. I think there was an entire round, I think, where Vittori barely even threw anything. I
Yeah,
want to say it was the second round where
something
Vittori
like
had
that.
no answer, barely threw any. I need to look at the numbers for how many significant strikes were thrown.
Right.
Um, But
Yeah, he
holy
was.
crap. When we were watching the fight, I forget what you said. Oh, you were like, so, do you want to change your prediction? I'm sitting there, I'm just like, I don't want to talk right now.
Yeah, I
feel like such an
said to you,
idiot.
because you said to me off air, I think, you want to see how he looks in the first round before you make your prediction. So first round ends, I'm like, well, Yuri, make your pick.
Yeah, first round ends, I was like, ah, shit.
Yep.
God damn
You
it,
switch to
man.
Whittaker, and you're like, Whittaker. I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought.
Whittaker. But I mean, it's
We should
credits where
keep score on our predictions.
credits due. He's put on a masterclass striking clinic.
Mm-hmm.
It like, I feel so bad, man.
No, I mean, look, I mean, look, it's clear Robert Whittaker is still in the Max Holloway spot of being better than everybody else in the division except for the champion by some distance, and so he is going to keep eating alive every single prospect that steps to him. So until until the UFC finally relents and gives him a third shot at Adesanya, because there's a minority of folks. I briefly thought that he won the last fight. I think there's definitely a valid. I don't think I would have scored it for him, but I think there's a valid argument to say that Adesanya versus Whittaker 2 should have gone to Whittaker. So I think that's just what's going to happen with middleweight. There's no one really on the up in middleweight at the moment. So
Yeah.
because everyone below is either except for Pereira, but he's already got a title shot lined up.
I just want to go on record and say I can't believe I know why they're giving Adesanya Pereira. His first fight was in 2021. That's all you need to know.
Okay, but also, who else are they going to give Adesanya?
Exactly. No, I get it, but I don't get it at the same time.
Like, I'm going to go down the entire rankings here, starting Whittaker. 2 losses, 2 losses. Not good enough to get to title shot. That's Derek Brunson. Pereira, Costas hurt and also lost. Strickland, not good enough. Hermanson, not good enough.
Not good
Till
enough.
never fights. Muniz, rising prospect. And then we're at 11 already with Kelvin Gastelum, who also lost. Like, that's like way out of title contention. So you
for
can't
Kelvin
really,
to even for Kelvin to even get to that point, he has to fight a lot of people real quick. And
Kelvin would have to
fights.
win. He has to win
Yeah.
a fight before he gets to even,
He needs to just fight, actually.
Yeah. So yeah, no, there's no one for Izzy except for Pereira. There's no other choice. Like Derek Brunson had his chance. He lost his title eliminator against Jared Cannonier. And
Cannonier just got absolutely
he got whacked.
Yeah.
So, there's no one else. So I think that Whittaker is going to keep beating up on prospects until he gets his third shot. I don't see any other way this goes.
What did he say? He's like, I'm always lurking in the middleweights. I'm like, that's so cold.
Yeah. He said in his post-fight interview after being asked, how does it feel to be so much more dangerous than the whole rest of the division, apart from the champion? He said, mate, I am the most dangerous person in the division, champion included. So I don't think I disagree.
He went on to say, it's like, I'm the reason people don't like to fight.
Yeah, he said I take the love out of fighting for them.
I'm like, that's so cold.
He says the coldest lines in the warmest tones. That's what I always say.
I also think he mentally dismantled Vettori.
Like Vettori, I agree. I want to say because Vettori fought Adesanya twice, and he's delusional, right? I mentioned it last episode. He said he won both of their fights. He walked out of the ring. He actually stole the mic from Michael Bisping on the way out. Talked to the Italian fans saying, I'm sorry, he really was an elite fighter. So even Vettori knew Whittaker beat him. And beat him good.
You essentially emotionally dismantled a brick wall. That's hard to do.
A screaming Italian orc. You humbled him. Yeah. So I'm as ever impressed by Whittaker. And I can't wait to see him fight Izzy again. I think it's inevitable. So that'll be a while. I think they'll try, that is pending Pereira versus Adesanya in November. Because if Pereira wins that shakes up everything.
I was about to say, on the chance that Pereira beats Izzy, where does that put Robert? Does that put Robert versus Pereira?
Gotta be. I don't think Izzy gets his immediate rematch because Whittaker will be ready, and he has won all of these fights.
Let's theory craft that fight then, because I think we're talking about it. I was texting you earlier today at work.
Mhm.
How do you think that fight would go? We
I
sort of
think
already
that's
know how the Adesanya fight will go, just based off of history. Like we don't know how this fight will
yeah.
go, but based on history, we have an inkling of an idea. But
Mhm.
because these guys have never fought, how do you think that fight would go?
I think Whittaker has to wrestle him, but like I told you earlier, getting into wrestling range on Alex Pereira is a terrifying prospect because that dude could be the best striker in the UFC today, which is saying a lot because that was Adesanya, but he holds a knockout win over Adesanya. Like, as a pure striker, I don't think anybody matches him for pure technique and pure power, like just that full combo. Um, so like because he is an out and out striker. So I think Bobby has to wrestle him. No matter how good his striking is, he has to wrestle Pereira.
He would
And
have to put himself in some really tricky situations to get even that close.
exactly.
Um,
If he can get in and get him down, I think that's his world. I think he can really do a lot with that because we don't know how Pereira's ground game is.
yeah, I don't know anything about his ground game. I don't think I've
Because
ever seen
nobody's
him on
been
the
able to
ground.
get him to the ground. He just knocks out everyone coming in. So we'll see. I would love to see that fight. I don't know if
That
they
would be a
win.
great
I'd love
fight.
to see it. Yeah. So
Um, just talking about Robert's ground game, I just want to say that I think Robert shooting that double leg on Vittori was kind of hilarious because it was completely unneeded. He didn't have to shoot a double leg and take him down, but I think he did that just to remind Vittori that he's the more elite fighter in the octagon.
you know what that reminds me of?
What?
When Jessica Andrade got her title shot against Valentina Shevchenko, everyone was saying her path to victory was to wrestle Valentina, and to prove a point, Valentina out wrestled Andrade the entire fight and finished her by crucifix. Like, and she said after the fight, she's like, "Yeah, I could have done this anyway, but I decided to wrestle to show her that even the things she thought she had over me, she didn't." Which
It's
is,
almost like it's almost like a fuck you.
yeah.
Just go fuck yourself, dude. This
She
I'm
even
better.
said in that interview is like, all of my future opponents looking for weaknesses, don't bother, there are none. Which I
That's
think
so
with
funny.
Valentina very well could be true. She is unstoppable. And partly because her division is just not up to snuff, but also probably because she is just that good. So
She's amazing. I love her.
yeah.
The last fight, I was expecting a little bit more action, but that's a whole nother thing.
I mean I think we'll talk about Valentina when she fights again, which probably won't be for a little bit. Flyweight's a little bit uncertain right now, but we'll have plenty to say when she does come up. So yeah, no, so
Yeah,
that was
I
two
again, I
yeah.
ate all of my words that night,
hmm
all of them.
Just
A
like you did yesterday.
big old buffet of me eating crow.
hmm Yeah.
Oh
So
god.
then after those two fights, we did have one other kind of marquee fight. You know that prelim fight last week that I said I couldn't believe was on the prelims? Well, that fight got moved up to the main card. Nasruddin Imova versus Joaquin Buckley. And I think I learned the reason I think that they were originally planning on doing it as a prelim is because they were airing the prelims on free French TV and they wanted eyes on that fight.
Makes
Um,
sense from marketing
so
standpoint.
so they swapped it with the Nasrat Hakparast versus John Makdessi fight, which I don't want to talk about that fight. It was so bad. I mean, not. I'll mention it briefly because I talked about it just now, but I'm not going to bring it up again later. Nasrat Hakparast he had a hype train going for a while. He's, in my opinion, looked extremely lackluster for the last 4 or 5 fights. And this fight really did not do much to move the needle for me. Like, he won in pretty convincing fashion, but it was boring and not convincing. So I'm just gonna ignore him until he does something that
I
piques my interest
was
again.
I was at work and I texted you because you were watching the fight or you're watching the prelims. I was still at work. I couldn't make it. I texted you. I was like, "Hey, how's the Nasrat fight going on?" He's like, "Bro, I'm trying to stay awake."
Yeah, I was fighting off sleep. And it's not like I hadn't gotten enough sleep or anything. Like, I slept late that day and I still couldn't stay awake. So I'm a little annoyed at Nazarite right now. He's not a bad fighter, but I just don't care what he does until he does something to impress me again. Anyway, so he got bumped to the prelims, and Nasruddin Imava versus Joaquin Buckley was moved up to the main card, where it should have been from the very beginning, in my opinion. So And it was a great fight. It really delivered. And it went almost the way I thought it would. Um, I said Imova would be technically better everywhere, which he was,
He was.
but he gassed in the third round. And Buckley
Buckley
put on a
capitalized on
great,
that.
yeah, he put on a great comeback, and he really rocked him a couple times. But it was a really good fight. And I think it does. I don't think it really takes the hype off of Buckley the way that they were hoping it would, because it was a competitive fight. But I do think Imavov is probably in what's kind of a thin middleweight division, one of the best rising prospects. And of course, he got great crowd support because of course he's a Frenchman fighting in France. Although he's Russian, but he moved there when he was a kid, so he's basically French. And so he's one of the best prospects on the up in middleweight. He's in a group with Andre Muniz and Dricus Duplessis. I would say for best prospects coming up in middleweight right now. And yeah, no, so I thought that was a good fight. I think Buckley also made a tremendous account of himself as well. I think he was more technical than I gave him credit
Yeah.
for. I always kind of talk about him as as kind of a hype job because to be fair, he had probably the greatest knockout in UFC history. And he built a hype train off that, and he built a brand off that. And you know what? Good for him. He's making money. But I always thought skill-wise he was a little bit overhyped because I watched his debut against Kevin Holland on short notice where he got starched by Kevin Holland, who can punch, to be fair, but also it was more memorable because Kevin Holland was shit talking him the whole time. So no, I was a little. But I think he has gotten better since he's gotten into the UFC. Even since the kick, technically, I think he's gotten better.
It was really funny when Imavov did catch his kick, and I was wondering, it's is he gonna try and pull that again?
Mm-hmm.
Is this gonna be another situation? But
it would have been pretty amazing. But yeah,
I would have probably just stopped watching MMA.
Yeah. That would have been we'd be living in a simulation and nothing would matter if he did that shit again.
Everything's made up. None of this is real.
Yep. We're just in somebody's UFC 4 game where they're just spamming the coolest moves they can think of. So yeah. No, but yeah, great fight. And I just wanted to spotlight those two for impressing me on that.
Seeing Buckley come alive in the third round was actually really fun because for the longest time he was getting just kind of manhandled and tooled.
Exactly. So yeah, no, he really showed more of a spine than I thought he had. And yeah, so good for him, really. I mean, and he's from St. Louis, he's my boy. Even though he's kind of a dick. So not one of my main boys, but whatever. But yeah, no, he definitely had a solid account of himself. So then the rest of the main card was all right. It was
wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad. It was okay. I mean, I'll start one of my predictions that was wrong. Charles Jourdain versus Nathaniel Wood. It was a good fight, but it was not quite the barn burner I was expecting. Mostly because Nathaniel Wood was way better than I gave him credit for.
Very, very technical.
Yep. And he really controlled Jourdain everywhere, mostly on the ground, but even in the striking, he was able to neutralize Jourdain's kind of explosiveness. So I think that really solidifies, in hindsight, it's a little obvious, but it solidifies Jourdain as a fun fighter, not a good fighter.
Right. Granted, there is, they are entertainers after all. I think he's even said he's an entertainer, but when you're getting paid to fight, you gotta, for the longevity of the game, the longevity of your career, you gotta actually fight smart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think why he was. I think back to his fight against Andre Ewell, which was his really kind of big moment. The only reason that was so crazy is because he was in a situation where if he lost that fight, he probably would have been cut. And so he had to pull out all the stops. He basically said, I have to convince the UFC to re-sign me. And oh boy, he did. But, it shows that he's kind of an inconsistent fighter. I love the guy, and he really took it to Shane Burgos in a fight that I thought he won. And Shane Burgos is quite good. But also, he lost in round 1 by submission to Julian Erosa, who, as much as I love him, I do not consider a good fighter. So, yeah. So, I mean, I think he'll be fine. Like he's popular. He's getting a little name value just because he's so exciting. But Wood really kind of
Going off
sucks.
of what you just said, just real quick, it's funny how mixed martial arts can be one of those sports where it's like, I really like this guy. Horrible fighter, really like him. You don't really
Yes.
hear that like a lot of sports, like other sports.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, oh god, this guy's so bad, but I love watching him play. You know? It's like, what? What other sport do you that? Like,
What are you
usually
talking
if a
about?
player is bad, you're like, God, get him off the field. Jesus, like he's awful. So no, like I think that's just, it's not something that works in team sports.
Because
Um,
usually it's the opposite. It's just like, wow, this guy's really, really good. I hate him.
yeah, exactly.
I just hate him. I'm looking at you, Lewis Hamilton. That's it.
Tom Brady won.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton and Tom Brady. I mean, Lewis Hamilton is the Tom Brady of the Formula One scene.
Yep,
Except not
exactly.
this season. This season, Lewis Hamilton is actually kind of shite, but whatever. It's actually
Fair.
it's actually fun to watch.
Yeah, it's not Hamver bought every single podium, right?
Yeah,
Trio of
it's
Doom.
great.
Yep,
I love it.
yep.
I like him
We'll talk about F1 sometime. That's a sport I've been meaning to get into, but
dude,
yeah,
I will guide you. I will guide you into the world of F1.
fair enough. But yeah, so the rest of the main card was okay. It was fine. I mean, I'll spare a moment for Alessio Di Chirico versus Roman Kopylov. I wasn't expecting much out of this fight because Di Chirico is one of those guys who is always on the end. He's always on one end or the other of a highway. There's no in between. He always has some great KO or he gets KO'd, and this is one where he got KO'd. Kopylov, I'll admit, I don't know much about. But he pulled out a pretty nice combo on Di Chirico to finish him. So I'll spotlight him for that. And he also looks exactly like Chase Hooper, which is so funny to me. Chase Hooper being, he's like the youngest guy in the promotion, and he's purely like a jujitsu guy.
all
Like
the
his strike
memes, all the
sucks.
memes about Chase Hooper last night were actually pretty funny. Like a lot of fighters were taking to Twitter saying this is what Chase Hooper would look like if he ate a sandwich. Which I'm like, yeah, that's fair actually.
Yep, definitely. Yeah. Dude is a skeleton. So yeah. No, so props to Kopylov. I mean, really, I'm not gonna say too much about him because I mean Dikiriko is not really a great fighter. And it wouldn't shock me if they cut him after this. So good
I
for him, I guess. I'd like to see him against a better fighter before I really judge him. And same thing really goes for the last two on the main card, which was it was a battle of debutantes to the UFC. Frenchman William Gomis versus Dutchman Jarno Aarons, I think.
I
So
I enjoyed this fight.
Jarno Aarons.
I interestingly enough, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I would have to rewatch it again to just get some. This is horrible, horrible research and podcast material, but I would have to rewatch it again so I get some more points on it. But I think they showed a lot of heart and a lot of promise
Hmm.
for two guys who are were they on a contender series?
No, I think they were both straight up free agents who were signed, if
Were
I
they
remember
just
right.
picked up?
I think they were just picked up.
For two guys who were essentially just picked up, and then one of them is fighting in his hometown on in one of the biggest promotion. He did a really good job.
Yeah, no, and we were
He
saying
did
like in the
a
first
fantastic
round, it was
job.
very evenly matched. Gomes and Aaron's both had their moments. They both looked very good. Gomes is interesting because he's a Sanda fighter. In Sanda, there aren't too many Sanda. Sanda is a Chinese martial art. There aren't
There's
too
one
many
other
Sanda
guy,
specialists. Like there's Muslim Salikov, and there's a few
Volkov,
Chinese
yeah.
fighters as well. And they're all right, but I mean, like Salikov's always had a little bit of a ceiling. Like he's always been like fringe number 15 in
It's
his
an
division.
interesting base for mixed martial arts. Definitely not a traditional base for getting into
Yeah,
MMA. Like your usual base would be either like Dutch kickboxing, Muay Thai, or boxing.
yeah. I
Not
mean, yeah, it's like it
or
falls into the
Taekwondo. Sorry,
category.
Taekwondo.
Yeah, it falls into the category of like watching Stephen Wonderboy Thompson fight because he's a karate guy, and that's also a very unorthodox background for mixed martial arts. So seeing a Sanda guy come in, it's interesting to see how they fare. And he looked good. It was a very interesting striking matchup because we had Aarons, who is Dutch, who had that Dutch kickboxing a little bit, although he was kind of more of a grappler.
Yeah, he
Um,
was he's a brown belt in judo.
Brown belt judo, yeah.
And he
So
had a very super clean hip toss. Like that was I got to rewatch that again because I
I
actually
think
didn't look.
I missed that one. I'll have to rewatch it as well because like I saw the end result, but I didn't see it happen.
It was a very crisp hip toss, and I need to rewatch that because I need to work on my takedown game.
Fair enough. Yeah,
I should probably just take judo to be honest,
yeah.
and to
Judo's a
supplement
solid
my.
base.
I needed something to supplement my BJJ because I'm good on the ground. I just need to learn how to take it to the ground. Anywho, that's the
Right.
point.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So honestly, like we were saying all fight, man, these two have promise, and but we were saying for these are really just two guys they picked up, and we both agreed we'd like to see them fight. Um, somebody, somebody UFC level, like somebody who comes off Contender Series, somebody who's recently off Contender Series, like somebody on the lower echelon of UFC, just to see where they stand in relation to the rest of the talent on the roster. Because European MMA is a little bit of a different level. It's kind of hard to gauge sometimes where they fit in until they fight somebody who has been in the Western MMA scene more. And so, having them face off against each other makes it a little unclear. So, but I'll keep an eye out for them. Like when they fight, I'll tune in. I mean, I tune in anyway, but I will be paying attention to them.
I'm
You know?
definitely gonna be paying attention to Gomez. I for some reason I just really like him. I think the Sanda background is again like I think it's really interesting to see someone pick up a quote unquote non-traditional base for mixed martial arts.
Mhm.
Um, maybe that's why I like
Even the judo base isn't that common.
yeah, especially if you make it like a big part of your game. But like, man, I'm really excited for the European like I'm calling it now. It's already kind of happening, but there's going to be a huge European boom in the next I want to say year or two in terms of like yeah, you have fighters coming out of like Russia, that's Eurasia, I guess, but like Russia, a lot of the like the Slavic countries and things like that. But like I want to see more fighters come out of like Germany and France and Belgium and things like that. And I
Right.
think the next I want to say with them opening up the French market, we hopefully we see a lot more fighters come out of France and those kind of countries because that's fun. And
I think you're
that's
right.
just growing the sport.
Because some of the products. I mean, we've gotten a fair few English fighters, but we really don't get much outside that. We've gotten a couple of French fighters. German MMA has been in a pretty bad state for a while,
Yeah.
um, which there may be some hope on that. Which about the guy I'll discuss next. But we've had, I think that they really could stand. We may see some more
Even like
from like
Italy.
Switzerland as well. Switzerland, Italy,
Even like
France,
Italy,
Germany.
like we have Marvin Vittori, and as much as I can't stand the guy, he's doing really big things for that country in terms of representing them.
Hmm.
Like the Italian crowd there was booming. They
Oh
were
yeah,
like
they were having
he
fun.
walks out to the Italian national anthem, everyone's singing along with him. It was so cool.
Yeah, the Italian anthem is also just a banger. So
Can
there's
we just
that
say
too.
was it the Gomez fight where they were singing the national anthem, like they were chanting like the national anthem when they were fighting?
It wasn't Gomez. It was um oh, who was it? I don't remember, but I know it was a big moment,
No,
and it was just
it was gone.
def-
It was Cyril gone.
yeah, it was gone in Devasi. You're right.
They were like singing the French
The
national anthem. Like
Marseillaise, yeah,
the entire crowd was, and
and it was deafening.
that's automatically like they're gonna have to book another fight in France because they already know the market's there.
Yeah,
That's solidified it
it's
right
so there.
there,
It's so there.
and I'm
Yeah.
excited for it. I want to see this sport grow internationally. I would love to see like a South African card. I know there's not many South African fights, but having like
There are plenty. I mean, Dricus Duplessis could
Duplessis
definitely
is
be
probably
like
like the biggest. He's probably the biggest
he's
South African star in there.
yeah. I mean, JP Bays technically hasn't been cut yet.
Yeah.
Don Madge, I think, was cut, but that's mostly just he couldn't get a fight. But also that's because he's an
But
anti-vaxxer.
having a
So
fight in like
that's
South Africa and like Johannesburg or Pretoria, that would be cool.
that would be cool.
And those
Yeah,
South Africans are crazy anyways. That'd be so fun to watch.
yeah. Um, So no, yeah, like, and it was really apparent all night with all the French fighters. The crowd was so behind them. Like I mentioned, Benoit Saint-Denis earlier, who had a really good, he had a really good KO over Miranda. And Fares Ziam when he fought Figlock, he looked good, by the way. But I'm mostly going to focus on the crowd. You know, they were so behind him. And with Gomis, with Imova, with Gunn, the crowd was deafening. They really had such a great atmosphere. Really, I mean, it's so different. You come from American crowds who are kind of middling, you know, at best.
This may be
And to this, it's
this may
crazy.
be me talking out of my ass, but like in mixed martial arts, the crowd is it plays a big factor on how a fight can go.
Yeah.
If you have a crowd, again, I've never fought on a world stage. I've never fought on any stage really. But if you have a crowd going with you, like that boosts your morale and your momentum up so much. Like there've been fighters talking about, and I think it was when like Robert Whittaker was in Australia, like he felt like he was unstoppable because he just had that much momentum going with him because of the crowd. Like he was feeding off that energy.
Even Cyril
It,
Gane, you know, in this event, he said, you know, when he got KO'd, he knew he had to get back up for the crowd. He said the crowd propelled him to that.
it's such a baller move.
Yep. So no, like,
It's so fun.
it's like all the French fighters were, you know, giving big ups to the crowd for, you know, being so supportive. So yeah, it was really really cool. I'd love to see another fight night there. Before we put this card to bed, I do want to mention one more prospect that really made a name for himself on this card, which was Abu Sufyan Magomedov. We'll call him Abus for short. Um, is a German-based Russian fighter. He fought Dustin Stoltzfus at this event, and it was not a long fight. He KO'd him in 19 seconds with just a nasty combo. He hit him with a front kick to the face, then I think a left, then a right, and then two rights on the way down. I think. And Stoltzfus isn't very good. I am on record saying that he's not very good. But the way that Magomedov just disposed of him in no time flat was
It was like a
incredible.
murder. I
Yeah.
watched the highlights when I got home. It's like he just murdered somebody.
A highlight, you mean the whole fight?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, like and
And it's over.
and you know, he's a middleweight, and so I'm excited to see, you know, he's somebody who I could see potentially climbing the ranks because middleweight is a little thin right now. And you know, they really gave him a big spotlight, you know, with the featured prelim. And he justified that spotlight. You know, like I said, they put him in the Yuri Prohaska spot of debuting him as a featured prelim. Not exactly the Yuri Prohaska spot because Yuri Prohaska came in and debuted against Volkan Ozdemir, who's a ranked fighter.
That's a
But
big fucking debut.
yeah, but that's a bit yeah, that's a way to announce your arrival, you know. So props to him. I want to see more of him for sure. And we'll see what happens.
You see he messed up his toe?
Yeah, Magomedov.
Yeah, he like fucked up his foot.
Oh no! It wasn't him. It was
Oh,
Benoit
was it him?
Saint-Denis. It was Benoit
Oh,
Saint-Denis.
that's what it was. Never mind.
You would think it was Magomedov because considering with the front kick, he kicked into Stoltzfus's mouth, like which is just ridiculous. But no, it was Saint-Denis who had. I don't know how he heard it, but I saw like
It was
a shot of that.
gruesome,
It was.
man.
I didn't see the whole thing, but
It
like
was
I looked away. It was
gnarly.
one of those ones where I looked away. I'm like, ugh, jeez. So yeah, no. Saint-Denis good too. He had a great. He looked good against Miranda, but also Miranda does not look UFC level. So you know, I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But I'd like to see Saint-Denis. I'd like to see his next fight. You know, he's
It's
a
definitely one of those
former special ops dude as
as
well.
his career goes on and he fights kind of more higher people or higher level people, then you'll really see how his skill is. Because like, yeah, you can fight an absolute can, but like your skills aren't really showcased that well.
Yeah,
Like your full potential isn't showcased if you're just kind of disposing people at a
it's
low
like
level.
Tyson Pedro fighting Harry Hunsucker. You know,
Yeah,
it's like you know you can tool them in no time flat for sure, but it doesn't say much about whether you're UFC level because you're beating someone who isn't UFC level. So yeah, no. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say on that. I suppose we should move on a little bit um, towards our next topic. So
I just lost the production notes. Oh
now
god,
you're
my
good.
computer sucks.
So one thing we've been meaning to talk about, we're finally bringing it back to the furries. Yes, I know it's been a while. Thank you to our furry listeners for listening to us and bearing with us.
Now
if
you
we
won't
haven't.
hate us.
Yes. Um, so one thing I wanted to remark on was, just the massive, like, we sit at the intersection of, a very seldom used intersection, really, I would say, like, of fandom, because there's very little overlap, I think, between furries and MMA fans. They're very separate communities known for very separate, kind of personalities. And so I was kind of thinking, like, why is that? Why are they so polarized from each other? And even more so than like regular, like, there are lots of furry sports fans, or not lots, but some. We talked about it in episode 1 a little bit. But you know, um, I think there's such a divide between when you say, okay, picture the stereotypical furry, and then I say, okay, picture the stereotypical mixed martial arts fan. You could not have two more different people, no?
Completely opposite, especially like people's perception of mixed martial arts. Um, I think back to the Just Bleed era of like early 2000s MMA, which is just like tap out shirts, the stupid tribal tattoos. I'm like, yeah, that's not the complete opposite of like what a
It's like
traditional furry is.
it's total meathead jock bro energy, you know? Not bro energy, it's meathead jock energy. Bro energy is a little different. That's like Rob Gronkowski or something, which, he's kind of a tool. But like it's such a different, and then you think of, your typical furry, your kind of typical uwu cutesy, um, fluffy character, so I think I find it funny that, we managed to run into each other, being part of the very small overlap between these two groups.
Quite literally running into each other at a con.
Yeah. Yeah, we posted the story of that on the Twitter a while back. But yeah, no, so like I think that's part of why it's so difficult to kind of like find an intersection between the two, because they're so different. Like I like us running into each other is, a needle in a haystack sort of moment.
It'll never happen
Like
again.
probably, like, but then I mean, we found a couple others who are in that intersection, but like, in terms of kind of like a broad based, appeal, that's part of why we're doing this podcast. We're trying to make mixed martial arts more accessible to furries, and I guess if we have any mixed martial arts fans who come and listen to this podcast, we can go the other way too and kind of show, hey, furries can be into this stuff too, or something to that nature. So, although I don't, we've been mostly marketing this as at fellow nerd types. I think other furries, other
Yeah.
non furries who are also not MMA fans. So maybe our audience will grow in time, but nonetheless, um, I find it amusing that we have such a gap between the perceptions of those, and I think neither of us is really in that mold, which shows, I guess, we are kind of the average between the two.
I like to think so, at least.
Yeah,
That's what I tell myself every night before I go to bed.
we're just normal people.
I'm just a normal person, right?
Yeah,
Right?
we're just normal people with slightly not so normal hobbies. But yeah,
I like to fold people in my off time, but I also like dressing up like a giant dog.
exactly. And that's just good fun. So yeah. So no, yeah, like I think that that's part of the reason I'm doing this podcast. Is just to make on both sides, to make
Yeah,
understanding of the other side more accessible.
I don't necessarily want to shove MMA down people's throats, even though I definitely sometimes do that to my friends. Hey, you're all gonna fight with me. Oh, okay. Like I don't want to do that, but like I want I don't know. I want to show that this sport is much more than big meathead punch big meathead.
Exactly. Not
When
not
in
just bleed, want to see people,
right, when in actuality,
driving
I
boats.
as much as, and this is just me personally, as much as I kind of like the brutality because I'm just kind of a weird person and I was just this gross curiosity with that types of things. Like I think I said in the first episode, I am actually way more interested in the technical aspects of it. It's I think where did I hear this? I think it was like a Joe Rogan podcast. I forget which fighter he was talking to. or no, he was like discussing to one of his friends why he likes jujitsu and mixed martial arts. It's critical problem solving with dire consequences.
Yeah.
I've always been this person. I like to see how things work and kind of been a problem solver. And so when given a situation, I like to be able to think my way out of things.
Right.
And this sport just happened to be, it's you're able to think your way out of it while also exerting like physical exercise and things like that. So for me, and you can, Pavel knows this. Whenever, like, I think I said this again. Whenever a fight gets to the ground, I'm like on the edge of my seat. I'm like, how is he going to get out of this? How is he going to pass his guard? How is he going to get out of the submission? I'm always thinking on that analytical side of my brain. Not to
Yeah.
say that I love seeing dudes get knocked out,
Right.
but
I think it's a spectacle, like
and sorry, go
but
ahead.
yeah. No, I was just saying it's a spectacle. Like, you see, like sometimes, like there's some really explosive moments that, like you'll see a crisp knockout or like something like the Buchecha heel hook where it's just an incredible display of technique just out of
And
nowhere.
a lot of other furries that I've talked to who aren't in the sport or into the sport, they're also very analytical people, and they're also problem solvers, and they like to see how things work. And I'm like, this is a sport where you can do that. Yeah, you're gonna have to kind of muscle your way through the brutality of it all,
Mhm.
but if you really read between the lines, you can see that this is 90, I'd wager 90% a thinking man's game.
Yeah. And I think,
It's a thinking man's game that's being driven by your physical strength.
yeah. And your physical quickness and just abilities.
Right.
Like I think, and this is a connection I hadn't made yet before, but I think part of the reason I might be so interested in the sport is because I used to fence actually, which is the
I
same thing.
That is actually really cool. I did not know that.
I Yeah, no, like I it's the same thing except instead of you'll get punched, you'll get stabbed. You know,
Sign me the fuck up.
it's fencing is fantastic. It's a really great sport, great exercise too. I really should get back to it honestly, but yeah, no, it's the same thing though. It's the sport is called physical chess for a reason. Like it's incredibly technical, but to the outside eye, it's a lot of folks running back and forth, waving swords at each other. Um,
It's like chess. Like you have to be able to think like several moves ahead of your opponent.
exactly,
And I think if
exactly.
it was like I understand why mixed martial arts isn't marketed as like a thinking man's game because that doesn't draw crowds. That just doesn't bring money in.
No,
But I think that there's a lot more to this sport than people realize, and I would love to kind of pull back that curtain a little bit and be able to show people like, dude, this is very high level. Like
that's why we do
there's
this
so
podcast.
many yeah, exactly. I was like,
So yeah,
"Oh, I love this sport so much." As weird and as fucked up as the sport can be, I love it.
yep. No, it's a very unorthodox sport in terms of its appeal, but like there's a lot there, and like you said, there's a ton of technique that's just below the surface that 90% of folks, 95% of folks, just don't know about. And I think you're right on. You're right on with furries being kind of analytical people who like to kind of like pick things apart, see how they work. There's so many furries who are in technology, like in IT and computer science, engineering, in science. There's so many analytically minded folks in this fandom. Just as many as there are creatively minded folks. There's
And I think because
end of the sport.
I'm not like very technologically sound, I still have this to be able to like I can still use my brain and still be able to like critically solve problems while not, no shade towards like my IT friends. But
Mhm.
like I'm able to be able to to critically think and problem solve without being next to a computer. Like
Yeah,
it's just how my brain works personally.
that's fair. That's
I'll be the
fair.
first one to say like I don't know that much about computers, and this
Hey, I'm
editing
I'm
of this
I'm, I'm doing comp sci, and I still don't know much about computers.
the editing of this podcast is very, very evident that I don't know
Yeah,
that much about computers.
no worries. We can be boomers together.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, I just wanted to touch on that, and I think to any furries and or techies listening to us, let us know what you think of that. Let us know your kind of thoughts on you know um, on the sport. We're always trying to get fresh perspectives.
And if
Um,
anyone, like, wants to know about the sport, like, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. Feel free to hit both of us up on Twitter. I will, like, walk you through MMA. I will help you. I will describe it and analyze it with you on a very, like, base level. On, like, why are they doing this thing? Well, they're doing this. Like, I will, like, baby step it with you.
yeah, no, like, and also just like, and if you want to know like all these, like Yuri's probably the guy to go to on technique. But if you want to like, even for like for people who are just trying to get into sports, saying, hey, I don't know any of these people. Where do I start? Just ask me. I know way too much about just about every fighter
Well, it
on the
all
roster.
started back in 1995 with Royce Gracie now.
Yeah, we'll give a history lesson some other episode. For now, we got to get to Chimaev versus
On a
Diaz.
definitely fight that wasn't fixed at all
Oh
and
yes,
wasn't swayed towards his
yeah.
strengths at all.
It's a fascinating topic, but not one like that's something where we'll definitely need a longer segment on that to talk about that. There's the early days of MMA were wild, so
It
we'll
was
lump that in with the Pride history episode
crazy.
as well. So yeah. So anyway, so no, we got a big pay per view coming up this week, and it's one that until very recently was a very weak card. It was basically Hamza Chimaev,
I
hottest
thought it was gonna
welterweight
be a
prospect
snooze
in the
fest.
business. Oh wait, hold up! I just remembered something. Hamza fights at middleweight too. Maybe he's the
Does
one
he
that they
fight at
get
mid
to
I
fight.
thought it was no, it's Walter, isn't it?
He fights at welterweight, but he has also fought at middleweight. He came into the UFC and he did 2 fights in 10 days, one of
Do you
which it was
think
at middleweight.
do you think
So
he's
if
willing to go up?
I think he's definitely one to go. He was
I mean,
talking about being
he's
double
game
champ.
enough.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. Hamza Chimaev stormed onto the scene about 2 years ago, um, and he's been pretty much unstoppable ever since. Like I said, he won 2 fights in 10 days, which is crazy. Um, and he is a suffocating wrestler. He can strike. Um,
Wait,
he's been
how many fights in 10 days?
he won 2 fights in 10 days.
Okay, I can barely, like, muster up enough energy to go to the gym in, like, 2 weeks.
No, the
Like,
story behind that was like he fought on Fight Island, which was one of the COVID era events UFC did. Won easily. He took one punch, I think.
yeah, something like that.
Basically said, I'll fight next week." Um, and Dana was so enthralled with him that he scheduled him for next week. Um, and he won again. And that was the start of his hype train. And he's been one of the most ducked fighters, one of the most avoided fighters in the sport.
He's
Um,
the black horse or the dark horse and boogeyman of his division.
yes, and
Nobody wants that smoke, but everybody
exactly.
wants the
Well,
smoke at the same time.
nobody except for Neil Magny, who called for him the entire time and was ignored. Got to put some shine on my boy, but nonetheless. Anyways, so he's undefeated since coming to the UFC. He's undefeated in his career, actually. And so they've been really his last fight was against Gilbert Burns, top contender. And it
That
was the
was
first fight where he looked mortal, but it was also one of the fights of the year.
that was a
Um,
fantastic fight. I need to
and
rewatch that fight again.
he pulled up a fantastic win. And so now he's sitting at number 3 in the welterweight division. Um, title shot is probably not going to happen for a little while because Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman just fought,
The
and they'll
welterweight
probably
division is on fire at the moment, so we'll wait for that to kind of extinguish itself.
exactly. But so they need a big main event for him though. Meanwhile, Nate Diaz, he has been around the fight game forever,
Forever.
forever since Pride. He fought in Pride, didn't he? No,
No,
No. His older
did.
brother Nick fought in Pride, but he's been around. He's not that much younger, so he's been around, almost that entire time. But
Since
he's
he's been
just
around since,
been,
like, 2005. Like,
yeah,
that's how
he's
long
one
it's
of
been.
he's a real OG of the sport, and like he is one of the most entertaining trash talkers in the sport. He just does not care. He's a
He's
gangster.
got that California gangster attitude, which I
Yep,
love.
yep, yeah. No, he takes no shit from anybody. Like And he is
very anti-authoritative too. Like
exactly. The
again,
situation,
he's a gangster.
exactly. The situation with him is that he is very publicly known to have only one fight left on his contract, and he wants to go and leave to fight celebrities in boxing, where he can make a lot more money. And so Dana White, not wanting him to be successful in that, um, is trying to give him the hardest fight possible on the way out, so that his value is depressed and
To
so
make sure he doesn't really come back.
exactly. Well, or if he comes back, it's for less money than he wants from
Right.
Dana. Because he is one of the one of their only draws to like casual MMA fans, because he beat Conor McGregor back in the day on short notice. And when you beat Conor, the casuals notice you, because the casual notice anything that happens in relation to Conor. So he's a big name, trash talking dude. Never say he's just a tough SOB. And so Dana is putting him up against Khamzat to try and steal his hype, and really to just milk one last payday out of Nate. And for the longest time, the card was basically just those two, because Nate's going to make a percentage of the pay-per-view buys, because he has a good enough contract, because he's been successful enough. And so Dana wants to give him as little money as possible on the way out. But over the last few weeks, I think they realized that nobody was actually going to watch this card unless they added some fights to it. So they added the Tony Ferguson versus Li Jingliang fight, which we mentioned
I'm excited for that
a couple episodes
fight.
ago. Yep, we'll talk about
episode,
that. Yeah, we'll talk about that in brief, because we already talked about it. But and then Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez, and to go with the other decent fight that they had, Johnny Walker versus Iwan Kutilaba. We'll go through that real quick, but first let's focus on that main event. This has to be Khamzat by murder, right?
Yeah, I murder, but I think Nate Diaz is gonna put up a little bit of a firefight.
You think so?
Or man, I don't know. When did Nate Diaz fight last? It was a while ago, right?
Nate Diaz fought
It was
Leon
Leon.
Edwards. Yeah.
Back
He got
last year.
For 24 minutes of that fight, he got completely outclassed, and then he stunned Edwards in the last minute of that fight and almost won it. But that doesn't take away from the fact that for 24 minutes he was pretty soundly outclassed by Leon. Granted, Leon is champion, so that loss has aged well. But
Okay,
still.
so I'm racking my brain right now. The only way I see Diaz having some sort of chance is his cardio.
You think so?
Nate Diaz has fantastic cardio. At least since the last time I saw him, which granted is a couple years ago. He has what it takes to go all 5 rounds.
Yeah, no, he definitely had energy in round 5 against Edwards, which is the only Diaz fight I've seen.
On the flip side of that, Khamzat, he's only done 3 rounders.
Yeah,
right?
And he was gassing.
Exactly.
They were all 1-rounders except for the John Phillips fight, which was basically a 2-rounder.
And then he went 3 rounds with Gilbert Burns. Gilbert put up a hell of a fight. Was very tired though by decision. Very tired, throwing very sloppy strikes, throwing very very low power strikes towards the middle to the end of the 5th round.
Yeah, Khamzat was gassing.
Third round, sorry.
Yeah, Khamzat was gassing. So you're right. That could be a difference maker.
That's going to be the biggest factor in terms of Nate Diaz having an inkling of a chance, is if he either plays it smart, which I don't think he's going to do.
He doesn't do.
I don't think he's going to play safe. That's just not in his repertoire. But if by some reason this goes beyond the 3rd round, Nate Diaz may have a chance at a late fight submission.
Okay, but that also assumes that he's going to make it that far.
Exactly. That's the caveat right there.
It becomes a question of, did Khamzat learn from his last fight? Did he improve his cardio? Alternatively, did he learn he needs to get the job done earlier? I still think, the odds reflect this too. Khamzat is minus 1150.
Oh no.
This is
I haven't seen
slated
the
to be
odds,
a
so this is the first I'm hearing about it.
this
What's
is slated
Diaz?
to be a murder. Nate is at plus 750.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
This is the odds are damning. But
Oh, dang.
you
That's
know, we'll see. We'll see.
this is
Nate
this is
Diaz
one of
always
the
has a puncher's
fights.
chance.
This is one of the fights where I hate to see both parties lose.
Everyone loves
I
Nate.
I love Nate. I am one of the biggest Nate Diaz fans. I'm just a Diaz brothers fan in general. I love them. Yeah, the giant assholes, but I fucking love them.
They're funny.
And that's the why I think that's the reason why I like them, because they're like they keep it true. You
Mhm.
know, they everything they say they mean it, and it's not
Yeah.
like it's not hyped.
Yeah.
They're not trying to
They
hype
say what
themselves.
they mean.
They know what they're about and they'll say it.
Mhm.
Inversely, I love Hamzat because he's a psycho.
Yeah, he's a monster.
He's a legitimate psycho. Apparently, he's a really nice guy, but
Yeah.
he's just a psycho, and I love that. I love just that aggression. I love that drive. So
Yeah.
for me, so it's like, man, I don't want any of these guys to lose.
Yeah. Small Hamzat's story. When I was traveling in Sweden this summer, I ran into some dudes in Stockholm who I was hosteling with. And they were also in MMA. They were training at MMA All Stars, Hamzat's gym, and they wanted to talk to him, but he was always in the middle of something. The two times that one of them went by them, one of them was like he was like doing weights or something, and the other time he was just looking at himself in the mirror, which I just think is so funny. Picturing Hamzat staring at himself in the mirror, just kind of like nodding, like
Checking himself out of the. God, I love that dude.
yeah. He's just a funny guy. So no, like I think Hamzat wins by murder. Personally, I think you're
Yeah,
right. There is a path to victory for Nate, but it's an exceedingly
I
small
wouldn't even say victory. I just say
path to
a
survival.
yeah, exactly, survival. I don't
Mhm.
see any way where Nate could win. Uh, Again, I have literally been wrong before.
Shoot, we were
Everyone
wrong. If
was,
I was wrong last week about Gantu Avasas, whatever. Anything can happen.
bro. I still got leftover pro I'm still eating.
Diaz was this close, like this close, to knocking out Leon Edwards and maybe getting that title shot instead of him. So,
My
anything.
one the one thing I hope to see before this fight is over is just an open-handed slap from Diaz. Just give him the old Stockton slap. I just
Yeah,
want to see one
just
last before he goes off in the sunset.
that would be fun. I hope he does that too.
Just
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 one
just a
more
Stockton
accident
slap
bias.
and double fingers. That's all I want to see.
I think we'll probably see at least one of those. So yeah. Um,
Because here's the thing though, like Nate Diaz has nothing to lose in this fight.
No, he's by even stepping into the octagon, he's getting exactly what he wants, which is freedom from the UFC. Which God bless him. Like
And I know
he's gonna go make money.
he's too game. He's way too game to not put on a good performance.
Yeah,
So I'm just I'm gonna have to do some more research and kind of see what other pundits say about this fight. Um, I'll probably put a couple of tweets on my thoughts later in the week as time goes on. And
mhm,
a really good. I'll definitely put out some tweets and just my thoughts towards like Thursday and Friday, because that's media day, and that's
mhm,
when you get a really good look on people's mentality going into their fights. It's just
right.
the interviews that they have to do, and there's no such thing as a on or not entertaining Diaz interview
Yeah,
because he's awesome.
yep, for sure, for sure.
He
So
hates the
yeah,
media, and I love it.
yeah, no, he hates the UFC. He's gonna try and burn the place down on his way out. You just know it.
I love it so much.
God bless him.
So who got next? So we
We
got
got
the Leach and Ferguson fight. We already talked about that last week.
yeah.
Um,
To reiterate my prediction for that though, I think that goes. This is a little bit of a tough one to predict. I think I'm gonna say Lee by decision. But
okay.
I think it'll be 29-28. I think it'll be close. I think Tony probably let's say Tony comes on in like the third round or something.
And this is also in welterweight, right? Yeah, because he moved
Yes.
up.
Yeah.
This is interesting because I wonder if Tony. I wonder if he learned from the Chandler fight of maintaining distance and knowing and knowing when to draw back a bit, and then just
Well,
keeping his center line guarded a little bit more. I don't think Leach is gonna blast another a front kick like Chandler did, but I wonder if I wonder how Tony's going into this fight.
well, take a look at the camp that he trained at for this. Though. He trained at Jackson Wink. All they do is distance management because it's a
Yeah,
camp full of point fighters. So like if any camp is going to teach him to be responsible about keeping distance, it's going to be Jackson Wink.
and
So
which is good. Which like normally for any other fighter, I'd be like, okay, whatever, that's fine.
they're making them boring.
But I know Tony's he's way too of a fighter's fighter to be boring. He's never been a boring fighter.
Never once.
And I don't see him starting that trend anytime soon, unless that knockout really, really messed him up.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
I don't
I think
see
this
it
will be a
happening.
fun fight. I think it'll be a fun fight no matter what because Tony's allergic to bad fights.
For sure.
Even in the Gaethje fight, he landed a picture perfect uppercut at the end of round 2, which nearly put Gaethje out. So, I think this will be great. So
What do you think the odds of them going to the ground early are gonna be?
although
You think
actually, well, there was one boring Tony fight, which was when Beneil Dariush smothered him, which I forgot to mention when we talked about Tony.
I haven't watched that fight. It's probably a good reason why I haven't watched that fight.
It wasn't boring. It's just that Beneil controlled him. That was
But
it.
Beneil tends to do that a lot, though.
He's super underrated. We'll have to talk about him at some point
I like
because
him, but he does have a tendency to kind of backpack a little bit and just
yeah, but
kind of control. But
true.
it's all setting things up.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, he does have his own exciting moments. He was part of maybe the greatest comeback in MMA I've ever seen.
Oh man, I
So,
was watching that live.
although the Schnell comeback on Sumo does
That was
hold up to it.
brutal though. Good God.
Yeah. So no, we'll see what happens. I think it'll be a fun fight no matter what. I
I
think
just
I'm gonna go Lee. Yuri, you wanna put yourself out there?
I'm gonna
Give
go
us a
Lee
pick.
too.
All right.
I can't. I'm so done. This is gonna be a little bit of soapbox right now.
Mhm.
I know I'm in that era of MMA because I've been watching for so long that all of the people that I look up to and I've watched for a long time are slowly kind of petering out. I can't see it happen again, man.
I mean,
I
you got
can't not
Nate and
again.
Tony on this card, though. I don't know, man.
Oh, dude, like,
Johnny Walker's on this card too.
fuck him. I don't care about him.
Yeah, no, we'll
Seeing
see.
him Looney Tunes his way on the octagon was hilarious.
Yep. So no, we'll
Um,
see.
yeah, no, I got Leech.
Leach by decision, knockout, TKO.
TKO
Ugh,
late second. No,
that.
early to mid third.
Well, I think if Tony gets TKO'd, it's going to be at the end of the first or sometime in the second. I don't think he makes it to the third before getting TKO'd.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I don't have the
oh,
emotional attachment to Tony you do. I'm sorry.
just be human for once.
Yep.
Oh,
We'll see. I'll be pulling for Tony. Don't get me wrong. I mean, look, I like both guys.
oh man, I'm even though I got Leech for this fight, I'm always pulling for Tony.
Yeah,
I
that's
just
fair.
love him, man.
That's fair.
Uh,
Next
yeah,
fight as well. I mean, we're also also two guys I really like. Kevin Holland and Daniel Rodriguez. Daniel Rodriguez is one of the baddest dudes in the game. He
I
can strike.
admittedly I don't know that much about him.
He's been
Um,
in some really fun fights. He debuted on short notice against Tim Means in his home state and starched him. So that talk about going into hostile territory. Like
man, Rodriguez's last fight was against Kevin Lee, though.
yeah, and he beat him.
Interesting. Yeah,
Let me
he's up there nowadays.
Kevin Lee.
Oh, he's an Eagle. That's what he's doing. He's an Eagle.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
yeah
Womp.
yeah
Oh, he fought Diego Sanchez. Oh no.
yeah.
At
uh,
165?
yep. It was a weird fight, and he almost lost to current Diego Sanchez.
I'm putting that on my list of fights that I should rewatch, or not even rewatch, I should just watch. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, I heard about it. I heard it wasn't very good, but
Dude, that
I
card's so fucking weird. I'm reading it now. Anywho, sorry.
yeah. Right.
Yeah.
We never mentioned actually in our list of promotions. We never mentioned the Eagle FC. Eagle FC is a Russian promotion run by former UFC champion
Not just
Nurmagomedov,
champion, Hall of Famer.
Hall
Put
of
some
Famer.
respect on his name.
You're right. I forgot they inducted him. So he's starting his own promotion and he seems to be trying to do better by his fighters than Dana is, which is good. But it seems to be right now kind of a place where some sort of washed guys will go, which is why we got Kevin Lee.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it, but a lot of the guys who are kind of in the twilight of their careers are going. Like Dos Santos is there.
Yeah.
Threw out his shoulder throwing a punch. Apparently,
Oof.
I think that's just more indicative on Dos Santos' age.
Yeah.
And
Oh, sorry, I was
body.
wrong. He didn't start Tim Means in his debut. He submitted him in round 2,
All
which
right,
is
so he's
still
got good jiu-jitsu game. Tim Means has pretty good jiu-jitsu too.
Yeah. And so he beat Dwight Grant in one of the greatest one-round fights I've ever seen. And he's only lost once in his entire time in the promotion, which was to Nicholas Dalby, which was a close decision if I remember right. He beat Mike Perry by decision. He KO'd Preston Parsons, who isn't very good.
Taking Mike Perry decision is pretty. That's a pretty badass thing.
Yeah, he's a tough dude. Is my point. So, and of course, Kevin Holland. We've talked about him. He's definitely done his share of work. Like he KO'd Jacare Souza in one of the strangest KOs I've ever seen. He starched Joaquin Buckley. He's a good fighter, and of course, he's must-watch TV simply for the fact that he is
real life
nonstop.
Batman.
Well, aside from being real life Batman, which I'll pull up some stories on him. But he does not shut up. Like his nickname is Trailblazer, but his informal nickname is
Big Mouth.
Big Mouth. Yeah, Big Mouth, and that's for a reason. It's because he never shuts up.
He was like, Jacare had like top mat on him, and he's just like, hey, I think Jacare has like a hammer face. He's like, damn, Jock, that was a good one.
I think I had a dream about this.
I think I had a dream about this. I was like 17 at the time, though.
Yeah.
and then starches Jacare from the bottom sitting.
Yeah, which unbelievable knockout. That? Nobody does that. No, and so he's always must watch TV. I love watching him. So, prediction: I think Kevin Holland is more technical. Also, D-Rod is coming off some pretty significant hand injuries. So I think he might be fighting a little bit more safe. He did say something about how he might have to change his style if he wants to stay in the sport.
You think it's going to be a grappling match?
No, I don't think it'll be a grappling match, but I think he's going to be a lot less swing and bang than usual. So I think
Holland's got great jiu-jitsu.
True, but
he's got amazing jiu-jitsu.
Well, you say that, but then he's also been wrestled pretty bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. But I don't think D-Rod doesn't have a wrestling threat to him. I don't think. So I think Holland will win. I don't think he'll TKO him. I think it'll be Holland by decision, but in like a fun decision.
I just saw that Kevin Holland has a second-degree black belt in Kung Fu. That's pretty funny.
Yep.
That's pretty good.
Yep. Bruce Buffer introduces him as a Kung Fu fighter. So, Anyway.
Okay, real quick. Bruce Buffer, ring announcer, been there forever. He was on fire during the Paris fight.
Oh, he went all out.
Brought it.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen that much energy from him in a while. I think that's because he's getting a little up there. He's been doing this for like 27 odd years. Like, it does damage on the body and on the voice, but he brought it especially for this fight or for this card.
He usually saves that kind of energy for the big pay-per-views.
Like big pay-per-views. So good on you, Bruce.
Or like when Anderson Silva had his final fight, he had that kind of energy. So no, it was awesome watching him.
So who do you got? You got Kevin Holland?
Holland by decision, but a fun decision.
I got by a very entertaining decision.
I think I'm gonna put myself out on that. I'm gonna say he gets rocked at least once.
Oh, it's not a Kevin Holland fight unless he gets rocked.
Fair enough.
No, this is true though. Like, historically, he's gotten rocked quite a bit, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but true.
He always comes back though. It's always fun to watch him come back.
Yeah. All right. Next fight. I won't spend too much time on this one because I don't think it's that particularly interesting. It's Rene Aldana versus Macy Chesan. Aldana is better than Chesan everywhere, except in height. And I think Aldana will out technical her, but also she disappointed me in my first viewing of her. It was Aldana versus Holly Holm, and she it was just a fight where she just followed Holly Holm in a circle for the entire fight because she did not know how to cut the cage. And Chesan isn't good, so I'm not worried about that in this fight. I think she's pretty soundly better. But I think it'll be I think a lackluster decision. So
I don't know anything about these fighters, and that's because I'm bad at my job.
All right, flip a coin then. We need a prediction on record.
I'm gonna go with Aldana.
Okay.
By decision. I don't know, man. I'm horrible. Sure. I don't pay attention. This isn't me being scumbaggy or anything. I just don't pay attention to women's MMA. I really should, but I don't.
I mean, to be fair, it's women's bantamweight, and women's bantamweight as a division is kind of a wasteland right now because Nunes killed everyone.
Like I can name on one hand the fighters that I pay attention to in women's MMA, and that's literally Jessica Andrade, Amanda Nunes, and Shevchenko. That's 3 people. I don't really pay attention that much.
You don't pay attention to Whaley and Rose?
Ah, shit! I forgot about Whaley. Yeah, Whaley. At one point, it was Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
Yeah, she
she retired. So there goes that. I don't pay attention to Thug Rose that much. I think back in the day I did when she was kind of like fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, before Pat Barry.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not before Pat Barry, but before Pat Barry started, being a terrible coach. Well, he was one, and I won't talk about her too much. We'll talk about Rose when she needs to be taught. I
just don't pay attention, and I know I really should, and just at least for the sake of this podcast and for my research purposes, I definitely need to.
I'll bring you up to speed.
So yeah, I got, what did I say? Aldana by decision. Cool. Yep, let's go with that.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, it's number 4 versus number 10. So yeah, I mean. Like I said, in a division where Ketlin Vieira is the number 2 contender, in a division where Juliana Pena is number 1 contender, there's not much going on there. So I don't blame you for not knowing too much about women's bantamweight.
Real quick, I just saw that Kevin Holland fight. I don't know if you said this or not. Mm-hmm. They're touting it as a catchweight fight.
Oh, what are they fighting? 195?
180.
180. Okay.
Interesting. Not. I don't know if that's really going to sway anything, but that's just an interesting.
All that tells me is that Kevin isn't going to be cutting any weight.
Yeah, which that's probably for the best.
Yeah, this was put together on short notice, so
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, final main card fight: Johnny Walker versus Iwan Kutilaba.
The meme fight.
Yeah. Johnny Walker is one of the premier knocked out artists in UFC.
Not knockout artist, knocked out artist.
Yes, because every time he gets knocked out, it is spectacular. He used to be a knockout artist, but now he's a knocked out artist.
He used to be fun and cool.
And then he went to
SBG.
Strangled and TriStar. Like all these gyms have strangled all the fun and creativity out of him.
Then he dislocated his shoulder while doing the worm.
Yeah, that was the end of his hype train right there. We didn't know it yet.
He's an entertaining fighter. I think if he focuses more, he has what it takes to come out of this fight alive. That being said, Iwan Kutilaba is scary.
He's intense.
I don't know how else to put it. It's scary.
Yeah, Iwan Kutilaba, he's one of those guys. He's not very good, but he's fun. And he likes to hit people very hard.
He's literally the division's Hulk.
His nickname is the Hulk. He shows up.
Yeah, you're right. It is.
He shows up to weigh-ins in green face paint, or at least he used to before the UFC started to strangle all the creativity out of their fighters.
He just screams at people's faces.
Yeah.
If you ever get a chance, look up the face-off between him and Khalil Roundtree.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. When we talk about UFC not just being meathead bros, I'm not talking about Iwan Kutilaba because he's kind of a meathead bro, But anyway, on paper, I would say Walker's a better fighter. However, I will also say Iwan will starch him. I'm going to say Iwan by late round 1 knockout because
that's actually
what happens.
Fair assessment, unless Johnny maintains distance and kind of point fights his way out of the situation.
No, he's not good enough at that to do it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I think at one point in time he was able to.
Not anymore. Yeah, back when he was fun and actually posed a threat to his opponents. I don't think he really
What
poses
a
a threat to his opponents anymore. Therefore, they don't care when he's trying to maintain distance, and so he's going to get starched. That's my opinion. What's your call?
I mean, I got Kutilaba by first round knockout. It's
All right.
it's,
So we're in agreement.
I mean, like, yeah, it's there's not really much to say on that one besides
Yeah.
that we're probably gonna see someone leave in a stretcher.
Oh, no, I don't think it'll be that bad. I think
Did you
it'll just
watch
be a
the
normal.
Did you watch the Jamal Hill fight?
Okay, you're right. He did get absolutely murdered by Jamal Hill. I think he'll walk out of the octagon, but
I
he's gonna
love
get.
how the meta for Johnny Walker is he's not exciting unless he gets knocked out, which is the most exciting part of his fight game, is his knockout.
It is sad though because he was at one point a hype train that got derailed. We'll talk more about that at a later episode though. There have been a lot of cases like his, but he's kind of the textbook example. So look, that's our main card. I'm gonna spotlight a couple fights further down the card as is my specialty. The fight that I've been hyping for months,
Wait
not
for it.
months, for the entire length of this podcast,
Wait
Mace,
for it.
is Hakeem Dawodu versus Julian
Hey,
Erosa.
Rosa, I knew you were gonna say it. I knew you were gonna
This
say it.
fight is going to be fireworks. I have been saying it for a month for a reason because Julian Erosa is one of my favorite fighters. He is allergic to bad fights. This is a guy who came in and fought Charles Jourdain and submitted him in round 1. And he's the ultimate kill or be killed fighter. He's even more kill or be killed than Tai Tuivasa, I would say. Dude does not care. And Dawodu is a very technical Muay Thai fighter. He's quite good, and his nickname's Mean Hakeem, and he's mean. He throws with bad intentions. So I think this is going to be fight of the night.
Oh,
Personally.
he has a flying knee TKO over Nate Landwehr?
Yeah, he does.
Whoa.
That fight was amazing. That was such a good fight.
And Nate Landwehr is also a killer be killed type of fighter too.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, I gotta try to figure out when this fight starts. I'm really hoping that works then.
It's featured prelim, so it'll be probably 7:30. Well, when is it?
Fine then.
Yeah, probably about 7:30.
As long as I don't take a nap, I'll be fine.
Yeah, you'll have time. So no, he subbed out Charles Jourdain. He lost to he did get KO'd by Sung Woo Choi. KO'd Nate Landwehr. Subbed Sean Woodson. He's all over the place. I always call him my favorite bad fighter. He also had a fight of the night against Steven Peterson in a split decision win, which I don't think should have been a split, but he is fireworks. I can't recommend enough. He's up there with Brandon Royval for like fighters for me that I just love watching. So, and I can't wait to talk about Royval whenever he's on a card. I'm sure you'll hear about it from me about like a month in advance. Other things to spotlight. Jailton Almeida is going to be fighting Shamil Abdurakhimov. I thought that fight got canceled. Hold up, give me a second.
Real quick, a fight that I want to spotlight because I think it's just going to be a fun fight.
Mm-hmm.
Jake Collier and Chris Barnett.
Yes, I was going to get.
It's not going to be a good fight by like any stretch of the imagination, but those guys are just fun to watch. Especially Chris Barnett, man.
Yeah.
I still can't believe that Jake Collier lost against oh god, what's his name? Arlovsky.
Yeah.
I even though
no. Wait, was it Arlovsky?
It was Arlovsky, yeah. It was a split decision.
Oh wow, yeah.
I don't think that fight should have been a loss. I literally think that Collier had it in the bag, or not in the bag, but he did enough to win the fight. But
yeah,
hey, that's judging for you, unfortunately.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean the thing with Collier, the reason this fight is so interesting is because these are heavyweights who are mobile and can strike. They have technique.
But
because
they don't look like it.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I don't want to be that guy.
No, it's true.
They don't look like it.
See, because Jake Collier, a long time ago, many moons ago, used to fight at middleweight in the UFC.
Which is insane. Not even light heavyweight.
Yeah, he's a middleweight in a heavyweight's body, which means he can still strike like a middleweight, which puts his striking ahead of a good portion of the heavyweight division. So, I really like the guy. He seems like a really humble dude. And Chris Barnett's just a fun dude. His nickname's Huggy Bear. He had this incredible spinning wheel kick, head kick knockout over Jean Vellante, which
It's not a knockout. It's set up a TKO, but
okay, but it was amazing.
Seeing somebody of his size throw a spinning wheel kick like that, unheard of.
Yes, absolutely.
He also has a submission loss. It was a loss against Yoel Romero.
Yeah.
Did I show you that?
Yeah, you did.
There's this exhibition grappling jiu-jitsu match of him versus Yoel Romero, and he was doing a pretty decent job. I'm not saying his jiu-jitsu was like amazing, but he did a really good job.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, to go against the living rock golem known as Yoel Romero, toe to toe, that's saying a lot. Okay, so I looked this up, and I was right. Shamil Abdurakhimov actually withdrew due to visa issues. So Jailton Almeida is fighting a short notice fighter, Anton Turkalj, or Turkalj. I can't pronounce his name. I'm sorry, I don't.
Wow,
I don't know
name you can't pronounce. Oh.
I mean, it's Turkalj.
Yeah, I'm not gonna try that.
Yeah, it's Turkalj or Turkalj or something. I don't know. Anyways, short notice guy. Almeida is going to eat him alive because he has some of the best, and he's going to go down. He's going back down either to catchweight or to light heavyweight, which I think is the division he should go after because I think he can really be a contender at light heavyweight. I think he's a little too small to really make a dent at heavyweight.
Looks like it's a catchweight at 220.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, because Almeida's like 225 pounds in a division where there's monsters of like 265 pounds or more. Like I think that's too small for heavyweight. But the dude is massive for a light heavyweight. He's huge, and he has incredible suffocating wrestling. He is one of my highest, the prospects I'm highest on. So he's going to tool this dude. I hope he gets the Shamil fight again later, because Shamil hasn't won a fight in ages, and he's still ranked, and I don't understand why he's still there. So, yeah. And then if there's one more fight I want to spotlight, it's Alatang Haley versus Chad and Heliger. I'll be real, I don't know much about Heliger, but I do know about Alatang Haley. See, with Chinese fighters, you know when you need to take them seriously as a prospect based on what camp they fight out of. He's out of fighter camp Embo, which is the good one. If they're fighting out of the Performance Institute of Shanghai, they're a joke because that camp is a joke. And in fact, he's also been training at Fight Ready for this camp, which is Henry Cejudo's camp, former flyweight and champion, and also the camp that Zhang Weili moved to, former strawweight champion.
It helped her so much.
Yes. And, I said last episode we would talk about Weili versus Carla Esparza. But we'll talk about that when it's a little closer because we forgot to do it last week. But she's quite good is the point. And she's been very, very good since she moved to Fight Ready. I think Alatang Haley is going to tool this dude. Then again, I can't say that really with 100% certainty because I don't really know Chad and Heliger much. But he's good is my point. So I wanted to spotlight him briefly. And that's pretty much everyone I think is notable enough to talk about. But this card really did come together in the late hours. This card was so weak for so long. But,
it was one of those cards where I'm like, I mean, I'll watch it mainly because for the sake of the podcast, and I like watching fights. But I wasn't going into it with like super I wasn't expecting it to be a barn burner. I still don't really expect it to be a barn burner, but it really did kind of form to a pretty decent card. And I've definitely seen worse pay-per-views before.
Yeah, the short notice ads of Ferguson, Jingleong, and Holland Rodriguez really helped this card.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I think this will be good. Like I said, I'm going to stake my claim for fight of the night on Dawodu versus Arosa. I think Collier versus Barnett will be fun, and I think Almeida is going to eat his opponent alive because he's just that good. So yeah, tune in. I think it'll be ultimately worth it. So yeah, we've been lucky. We haven't had any real stinker cards lately. Even the ones that
don't acknowledge it.
Knock wood.
Don't jinx it, man. What the heck?
No. Dude. Look. You're right, but also like
Because
I have
the
faith.
nature.
I have faith in my boy Arosa.
That's the unfortunate nature of this game is that there are going to be bad cards, and there are
Yes.
going to be bad fights, and that's just part of it. Like it's either somebody doesn't mentally show up to the fight and just kind of coasts or what have you, or the matchup is just really, really off and weird. It just happens, and you just
Mhm.
kind of got to suck it up and realize that this is part of the game.
Right.
As much as I hate it,
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm looking ahead at some of the other ones, like Sandhagen versus Yadong is the next one. That looks okay, I guess.
I'm just excited about Sandhagen fighting. I love watching him fight.
He's a fun fighter. We'll
He's just
talk
a
about him next
he's
week
a
for sure.
violent person.
Yeah. And then, yeah, beyond that, it's a little bit hard to say because there aren't too many fights announced for some of the other cards beyond that, like Dern versus Yen Xiaonan.
That's the
Could
thing
be
about
a little rougher.
coming towards like the winter is that towards the holiday season there aren't really that many cards because they try to kind of ramp down for the year. But hey, what
Well,
knows?
we're not that close to holiday season yet. It's September.
That's September already. That's terrifying. August didn't exist for me. I blinked and
That's
suddenly it's September.
time flies.
Oh,
But
I
yeah,
hate it.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, cool. I think that wraps us up though. Yeah,
Definitely,
thanks for
yeah.
coming by our podcast.
We're I I was gonna say, man, I'm still thinking about the card over the weekend. I need to rewatch those fights. It was so good. But
Yeah, no worries.
definitely follow us on Twitter at Dogfight Pod, if I can say my words correctly today. And you can go ahead and follow me on my personal account at Uriah Stone.
Or my personal account at SephNY.
And I'm still kind of tooling around with some things. I'm gonna open up the Discord server. We're doing this in Discord. I'm gonna start opening up just so we can get some more kind of like uh listener interaction and things like
Some
that.
discourse, if you
We
will.
can. Did I say that? What did I say?
No. I know. I'm
Oh,
making a joke. We could get
um,
some discourse in the Discord.
maybe host like watch parties or something. I think that'd actually be really fun to do like a watch party together
That would be fun.
with some people. But yeah, we're gonna I'm gonna tool around. I'm gonna talk to Pavel off air, see how we're gonna do this later, and then I'll post a link to the Twitter and whatnot. But yeah, thanks for joining in on another podcast
See you
episode.
next week.
I need sleep.
No worries. See y'all next week.